I'd like to ask your advice of how I could encourage my peers to come out and actually see conservatives and hear you guys' voices instead of relying on a stereotype perpetuated by the media to argue against straw men instead. I'm more left-leaning, and I disagree on plenty of your policies, but we also agree on some other things. And I like to come to conservative events like this and hear you guys' voices, but unfortunately there's been a lot of political censorship, a lot of shameful attempts to keep people from speaking, especially at college campuses, coming from my side of the political spectrum. And so I'd like to ask your advice of how I could encourage my peers to come out and actually see conservatives and hear you guys' voices instead of relying on a stereotype perpetuated by the media to argue against straw men instead.
So that is a fabulous question. Let me start by just saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of a civil discussion. You're right, that doesn't happen a lot on college campuses, and it needs to happen. And it is important, I think, to listen not just to those you agree with, but to those you disagree with. In many ways, I think you can learn more listening to opposing views rather than people who are just reinforcing what you already think. You know, I'm not sure I know the answer in terms of, if you look at the left, for a long time, the left embraced free speech. You look at the free speech, one of the seminal Supreme Court decisions on free speech involved a anti-war protester who wore a jacket that said F the draft, and it didn't abbreviate F. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, okay, that may be one, you know, that may be one man's obscenity, but the First Amendment protects his right to say that. I think that's exactly right. There used to be lions of the left who embraced free speech. It is becoming more and more rare, and I do think it's important for your voice and for other voices on the political left to say, look, if we, all right, I don't know your economic views, but let's say your economic views are towards bigger government or in the socialist direction. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but hypothetically, let's say you do. If you believe socialism is a good idea, and if you're actually convinced this is a better system that helps people more, then one ought to be willing and eager to have that conversation, not just with people who agree with you, but people who disagree with you, and look to the facts of, okay, what actually lifts people out of poverty? What actually helps people achieve prosperity? As a consumer of news, what is hard right now is there's virtually no unbiased news. And we live in such a tribalized world that the left listens to left-wing news, the right listens to right-wing news. We don't have shared facts. We don't have conversations together. And at least the way I try to go through that is I try to, rather than pretend any source is unbiased, I try to listen to and read things that are explicitly on the left and explicitly on the right. And usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. So what I would say is your voice engaged on both sides of the aisle, hopefully that becomes contagious.
I would be curious, too, just to hear your thoughts on, because I think your diagnosis is obviously right about the left censoring conservatives. I almost don't hear any calls by conservatives to censor the libs. Probably there just aren't enough of us. So why is it? What makes you different? Why are you here? Why are you interested in, even if you disagree with us, in hearing what we have to say, while so many of your fellow left-wingers are not?
I mean, I would say I'm not really interested in some big tribe of people. I think we're all individuals, and we all have our individual policy beliefs on separate issues. You know, I certainly agree with you on gun control. I'm a big gun rights advocate. I believe everybody should be able to own a gun if they want to, because that's your right to protect yourself. And I think having those opinions that kind of differ from people who may share my opinion on healthcare, for example, really kind of puts into perspective the way that we are treating, and I say we, but I don't really generally want to associate myself with people who try to censor you guys, but the way that leftists try to treat conservatives and your opinions having that kind of experience really lends some perspective to why we should give you guys way more respect than we actually do.